Today we will start with the new topics. Actually, most of the topics that we will be discussing in this particular unit, that will be based on asymmetric encryption. Okay, so whatever the topics that we will be discussing in unit 2, that are based on asymmetric encryption techniques, or we can say that asymmetric cryptographic techniques we will be discussing in today's this session, or we can say that unit 2 is containing all those that algorithms that are asymmetric. Okay, so last time in like in DS, triple DS, we again and again we have used a term that is a symmetric encryption. So what we by symmetric encryption, what we do that we have used the same set of keys. Okay, so in symmetric encryption, what we have preferred that we have used a same set of keys. That same keys can be used for encryption also, and same key can be used for the decryption also. But in today's topic, like we will be discussing some of the algorithm like RSA is there. So in that particular RSA, what we use a asymmetric algorithm we prefer. So by asymmetric algorithm, we mean that we will be using different set of keys. Fine. So before doing that RSA algorithm, there are some numerical part, or there are some concepts that must be very much clear in your mind, so that when we will solve that particular algorithm, or when we do all those equations related to that asymmetric encryption, we can use all those techniques over here. Okay, so before the starting, these are some of the concepts. No doubt, undoubtedly, these are the contents of your syllabus also. Plus, there is some mathematical notations that we use in cryptography. Okay, so we will start with the Euler's quotient function. Okay, so we have a first numerical part, or the first we can say that numerical portion that is related to the cryptography is that Euler's quotient function is there. Okay, before all those particular things, I just need to ask you something that I hope that you all understand the concepts of prime numbers. Okay, so what is a prime number? So prime number is an integer which is greater than 1, okay, with only 2 positive divisors. Okay, so what is a prime number? Prime number is an integer that is greater than 1 with only 2 positive divisors are there. Okay, so what are these 2 positive divisors? How can you say that this particular number is a prime number? Because it is either divided by itself, or it is either divided by 1 only. Okay, so we have this 1. So in that prime number, basically we have two positive divisors, that is 1 and another by the number itself. Is it clear? So this is what a prime number is. So these are 1-2 topics, or the number theory we have, that what basically theory portion related to numbers we will be using in this particular case. Another one is the GCD part. So what is this GCD? GCD is greatest common divisor, or we can say that highest common factor, HCF. Clear? So there is a concept of GCD that we will be using in this particular technique. Okay? So I just want to go through all those this particular thing, that what basically a GCD is. Now let's suppose I need to find the common divisors or the factors of this particular number. So what I want, okay, so what is GCD? Let's suppose I need to find the factors of this number, that is 24. Okay, so what will be the factors of this particular number? That it could be divided by 1, it could be divided by 2, it could be divided by 3, 4, 6, 8. With 7 it cannot be divided, 8. With 9 it also cannot be divided, similarly to 10, 11. But 12 is there, 24 is there. Okay, so what we can say that what is this common divisor? Like we need to find this common divisor of this particular number. So this is a set for 24. Okay, this is the some particular set for a number 24, up to which we can divide this particular number. So we represent this particular thing as a common divisor, or we can say that divisor of this particular number, that is divisor of 24. Clear? Now let's suppose we have a divisor of 32 also. So what are the divisor of 32? We have a 1, okay, 2, 3 is not there, 4, 5 is not there, 6 is not, 7 is not there, 8, 16 and 32. So how we can find the divisor of a particular thing? That we have to check that the value of that number should be such that it should be less than the number itself. Like 24 is there, so your last number should not exceed that 24. Similarly, for 32, your last number should not exceed the 32. So all these are the divisor set. Okay. So I hope that this much amount of mathematics you have done previously also. So just to brush up all those concepts, what I need to say that 24 and 32, for this particular 24 number and 32, we have a proper divisor set over here. Okay. Then what is there? I will go for the some common divisor. Okay. So now I will see that. Now let's suppose I need to find the greatest common divisor for these particular two numbers, that is 24 and 32. Okay. So first of all, I will calculate the divisors of 24 and 32. Fine. So all these are the divisors. Now the next thing is that I will go to find the common divisor in both the sets. Okay. I would like to calculate the common divisor in both the sets. Now what are these common divisor? Both the numbers that are common in both the sets. Okay. So any number that is common in both the sets, that is the common divisor. Like in my case, 1 is present in both the sets. So first number is your 1 number. Then we have 2. Then we have 2 over here. Clear? Again, 3 is not common, but 4 is common. So 4 is there. Okay. 6 is not there. 8 is in both the sets. So we have 8. So apart from these 4 numbers, I don't think so there is any common divisor. So we don't have any common divisor in both the sets. Is it clear? Next is that from this common divisor, I need to find the greatest common divisor. Okay, so what my definition of GCD is? Greatest common divisor. Okay, so greatest, which number is greater? That is 8. So what will be the answer? 8. So this is how we calculate the GCD. That is greatest common divisor. So first of all, we will find the divisor of both the numbers. Then we will calculate the common numbers that belongs to both the sets. And then we will see that which number is the greatest number. Clear? So this is how we can calculate greatest common divisor. I hope this is clear to you. So these are 2-3 concepts that we'll be using in this particular algorithms or in this particular cryptography technique, that is asymmetric techniques. One is your prime number. So what is a prime number? That has only 2 divisors only. One is that 1 and the another one is a number itself. Second thing is that we will need to calculate the GCD. So what is GCD? That is greatest common divisor. So we will find all those divisor belongs to that particular number. Then we will calculate, like these are the divisor. Then we will calculate the common numbers between two sets like this. And then we will find the greatest number, that is 8. Clear? This thing is clear? If this GCD is clear to you, because again and again we will be using the term GCD. So I won't be repeating all those things with you. So if GCD is clear to you, kindly raise your hand so that I can start with that Toshan functions. Yes. So I will just move towards the next part. That is a Euler's Toshan function is there. Okay. So we have a Euler's Toshan function is there. So what is this Euler-Toshan function? First of all, we represent this Euler-Toshan function with this particular symbol, that is phi n. Okay, so what we are using over here, that is phi n, or it can be also known as Euler's phi function. Okay, so either it is known as a phi function, or we can say that this is Euler's phi function. Clear? Second thing is that what is Euler-Tolsche function? It says that it is defined as a number of positive integer. How we can define this particular Euler-Tolsche function? It is a number of positive integers which is less than n that are co-prime to it. Okay, so there are so many terms that we are using. That Euler-Tolsche function is defined as the number of positive integer, as a number of positive integers that is less than n and that are co-prime to n, that are co-prime to m. Co-prime to n. So what this phi n will contain? It will consist of number. Number means quantity. Okay, how much? So number of positive integers that is less than n. That should be less than n. That is the total number that we have given to you. Okay, and that are co-prime to n. Now we will discuss each and everything. Now what we mean by co-prime? Just remember that co-prime is that whose GCD is equal to 1. So just note down all these terms. Okay. So what we mean by a co-prime, that whose GCD value is that is 1. Okay. So number of positive integers. So your positive integer, that is this particular positive integer, it should be such that n should be greater than equal to 1. Clear? So by definition, I just again repeated, what is Euler-Tolsche function? We represent this particular function with this symbol, which is also known as Euler phi function. Clear? So what it contains? It contains number of positive integers. Number of positive integer matlab that should be greater than equal to 1 and less than that and that are co-prime to n. Okay, so all these number are co-prime to n. So what we mean by co-prime? That is having GCD value equal to 1. Now let's suppose what is there, that we have a f phi. Okay, so I need to find the Tolsche function of all this particular thing. Okay, so how we can represent this phi? Like we have all that numbers that is less than 5. So our set should be such type that all these numbers should be less than 5. Okay, and which is co-prime, that is having GCD 1. So we will check that 1 with 5 we are having GCD 1. So 1 belongs to this particular set. Okay, again we will find GCD of divisor of this 2 with 5 as 1. Okay, again we can include this number 2. Clear? So we have the GCD of both this number 5 and 3, that is 1. Okay, so we have one common over here. So again that is 3. Okay, so we can say that all numbers less than 5 which is co-prime, that is having GCD with equal to 1. So if we check the GCDs of 5 and 1, so that will be 1 only. Okay, so that's why I have included this particular number. Clear? And that is the 2 and 5. When we will calculate the GCD of 5 and 2, that will be also 1. Okay? That's why I have included this 2 number over here. Then we will calculate GCD of 3 and 5. Again, that number is 1. Okay? So what was this GCD? That is greatest common divisor. So we must say that, and why we, in that particular example in which I have explained you about GCD, we don't have any that particular thing that how much GCD value should be there. Okay, so we have co-prime is that in which we have a greatest common divisor. The value of greatest common divisor should be 1. Okay, so हमारे पास क्या होगा? Finally, all these are the number, that is 1, 2, 3 and 4. But we don't have any GCD that 5. With 5 we don't have any 1 value, greatest common division. Okay, so that's why we can include all those set, that is 1, 2, 3 and 4 over here. Clear? Next is that again we will find the phi of Euler this torsion function for this 6 number. Okay, so when we are talking about that 6 number, so how many numbers we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Clear? So all these number belongs to this particular 6. How we came to know? Because all these numbers should be less than that value of that this total number, or it should be up to this particular number only. Now what we will check the GCD values of each and every number with the 6 value. Okay, so हम check करेंगे 1 with 6. Okay, so we will find the greatest common divisor between 1 and 6. So in that particular case, I just give you I will just give you one advice, that after the completion of this topic, you just calculate the greatest common divisors. You can find that GCD, because we don't have so much time that I can calculate each and every part. So I'm just describing you each and everything, that how these values are coming. Okay, so when we calculate the GCD of this between 6 and 1, we have the value 1. So that's why this number is included. Clear? So if we check for the GCD of 2 and 6, okay, so it is 2. So what will be the answer? 2. But it will not satisfy my answer. So that's why I will not include this particular number. If I check the GCD of 6 with 3, again that number is not satisfying. It will give you the value of 3. Okay? So that will not be included. Again there is a 4. We will calculate the GCD of 6 with 4. Again it will not give you that answer of 1. So that's why we are not included. And when we will calculate the GCD of 6 and 5, it will give you the 1. So what will be the greatest common division? That will be 1 this particular case. Clear? So finally, we will include this 5, and again that 6 is not being, again that GCD of both these numbers are not same. So that's why we will not include that particular number. Clear? So this is what, this is how we can define the Euler's torsion function that will include all those sets of number. Now the answer is that what will be the answer for this Euler torsion function? Is this set? No. What we are saying, Euler torsion function consists of number of positive. Number means quantity. So in my case, for this 5, okay, I'm just showing you in a just detailed manner that what will be the value for this particular 5, that is 1, 2, 3, 4. So total numbers we are having 4 over here. Okay, so this will be my answer. This is not my answer. This is just a set, just for your explanation. I have given you all these numbers. Clear? Now what will be the value of this 5 and 6? That is 1, 2. So what will be the value? 2 over here. Clear? So don't get confused if somebody asks you to find that Euler torsion function for a particular number. Then you don't have to write. You are just writing all these things for your convenience, that for which particular number you will be getting that GCD value 1. Apart from that, what will be the final answer? That is the number of positive integers. Okay, that is the total number of total quantity. What are basic quantity? How much number are there in this particular thing? Okay. Is it clear? So this is how we can define particular this thing. So GCD is this how Euler torsion function is defined. We have to give the total number of integers. Okay. So we have a 4 in this particular case and 2 for this particular case. I hope this is clear to you. Next is that in this particular thing, you need to just remember one thing, that if two integers are said to be relatively prime, mutually prime or co-prime. So all these 3 words are, we can simultaneously use all these 3 words. So co-prime is also same. Either we use the word co-prime, or we use the term relative prime, or we use the term mutually prime. Clear? So don't get confused. You can also be asked that what is relative prime. That is same as to the co-prime. And what is co-prime? Where we have a GCD value, greatest common divisor is, that is 1. Clear? So if the only positive integer factor that divides both of them is 1. So this is how we can represent this particular thing. Okay, so two integers are said to be relatively prime, mutually prime, or co-prime if the only positive integer or factor that divides both of them is 1. So that's why we have used this, all these factors, how we can have calculate all these factors. Okay, I again repeated, two integers are said to be relatively prime, mutually prime, or co-prime if the only positive integer or factor that divides both of them is 1. Okay, so this is how we can calculate a co-prime or a relative prime or a mutual prime. Clear? So there are 2-3 things that you need to remember. Okay, let me complete this particular thing, then I will explain you. Now there is another method that how we can calculate this particular totient function. So what we do when we see that when n is prime, okay, when n is prime, so how you can calculate this phi value of this totient n, that is phi n, that is n minus 1. Okay, so in my case, what was the value of that n? So let's suppose now this 5 is a prime number. So what will be the answer if we use this particular method only? So I can directly calculate it 5, n minus 1, 5 minus 1, that is 4. So again we are getting this 4 here also and here. Okay. Similarly, let's suppose I need to calculate phi of 23. That is 23 minus 1. So these are the total number of elements. Clear? So this is the second formula in which we can mention. But what should be the condition? That my n should be prime over here. So whenever my term, that number that I need to find the totient value, for that, if that number is prime, so I can directly subtract 1 from that particular number. Clear? Now there is another term that let's suppose we will be using all this calculation in my algorithm. So these are just the some of the description that we need to see that how we can use this totient function. Okay. Now let's suppose we have value phi a into b. Okay. So how we can calculate this particular thing phi, if like this such type of equation is given to you? So you can write like this, phi of a multiply phi of b. Clear? So this is how you can represent this particular calculation over here. Now let's suppose I am having the value and I need to calculate, that is 35. So what we can do, this is just an example. Let's suppose I need to calculate the value of this phi of 35. Now this is not a prime number. If it would have been the prime number, so I have directly subtracted 1 from that particular number. So what I will see the multiples of this number. Now let's suppose the 7 5s is 35. So I can write like this, phi 7 multiply phi 5. Okay? So this is how I can use phi 7 multiply phi 5. I can write like this. According to this equation, I can write like this particular. Now both this 7 and 5 are the prime numbers. So now these both numbers are prime numbers. So I can directly subtract minus from that particular number. So what you can do, you can write like this, phi 7 minus 1, that is 6 multiply phi, that is 6, and 5 minus 1, that is 4. So you will be getting answer like this, 6 and 4. So what will be the answer? That is 24. Okay. So this is the answer that we will be getting. Clear? Again we have a phi. Let's suppose I need to calculate this particular thing. So we have a value of that. Let's suppose I need to calculate the value of this 5, 12. So 3 4s are 12 is there, 5, 3 and 4 is there. Okay. Now 3 is prime number. I can directly subtract 1 from it. So what will be the answer? 2. And what about 4? This is not a, that is a co-prime that we need to calculate. So again, the value that we will be getting for this 4 is that whatever the co-prime numbers that we are having for this 4, if you calculate that particular thing, you are having 2 over here. So what will be the answer? That is 2. So what answer you will be getting over here? That is 4. Clear? So this is how we can use all this particular thing. Okay, that how we can define this cofactors over here. Is it fine? Okay, so how we can include it all this number, that we just see to it that how many of this number we can have, that the value of n should be, that the value of GCD should be 1. Okay, so we will find that greatest common division should be 1 over here. Clear? If this topic is clear to you, I just repeat all these points regarding this Euler-Totschen. So if you have missed something, you just look at it. Like what is first Euler-Totschen function is that it is represented with the term phi n, and it is also known as Euler phi function. What basically a Euler-Totschen function is that it will tell you the total number of positive integer less than n that are co-prime to n. Okay, so that are co-prime to n. So by co-prime we means that the GCD value is 1. So GCD is greatest common division. Okay, so we will see that the greatest common division of this number should be 1 over here. So what we'll do that, like we have a number over here 5. Okay, so we have total values 1, 2, 3, 4 over here. So we will calculate GCD of both this number, 5 also and 1 also. Okay, one by one we will check for each number. 5, 1 GCD. 5, 2, 1 is common. 5, 3, 1 GCD. 5, 4, 1. Okay, so when we have calculated for 6, so let's suppose we have all these values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we calculate each value with this particular number. 1, 6, that is 1. We have a 1 GCD over here. So that's why I have included this number. With 2, we don't have that GCD. The value of 2 is 2 over here. The value of GCD is 2 over here. And then we have 3, 6. The value is 3. Again, we will not include that particular, because we require greatest common division, that should be 1 only. Okay. Again, we have a 4. Again, that is not being used over here. And 5 is there. 5 is we have GCD, well, we will use that particular. And for 6, again, we are not having that GCD. Clear? Next important thing that you need to note, that this co-prime, mutually prime and relative prime, all these terms are same. Okay, so don't get confused when somebody asks you about relative prime, mutually prime or co-prime. Okay, but what you need to consider, that your GCD value should be 1. Clear? So this was your first, we can say that point. That is your second. This is your third. Fourth one is when your number n is prime, you can directly subtract -1 from that. Okay, so this was your third point that you need to understand. Like I need to find 5. 5 is a prime number. 5 minus 1, 4. So we will be getting 4 answer. And again, there is a property that if we have two numbers and we are multiplying both numbers, we can individually solve that particular numbers. Okay, like this. So according to the number, value of a number, whether it is prime or not, we can solve that particular thing. Clear? This Totschen function is clear to you? So if you are satisfied, kindly raise your hand. I know that this is somehow little bit difficult to understand that GCD, but you just solve this exercise by your own. You will able to understand that how we can find that GCD. Okay, so your value of that GCD should be 1. Clear? Now the next portion of this particular topic is that we have another topic, that is Euler's theorem. So first of all, we will just need to understand Euler-Thomson function. Now we need to just see that what basically a Euler theorem is. Okay, so this Euler theorem is also known as Fermat-Euler theorem. Okay, the first point is that it is also known as Fermat-Euler theorem. Secondly, this is the generalized version of Fermat, or we can say that this is a generalized version of Fermat theorem. Now, what is this Fermat theorem? This we will discuss after this particular topic. So, what is, first of all, you just understand that Euler theorem is also known as Fermat-Euler theorem, and it is one of the generalized, we can say that, version of your Fermat theorem. Okay. Now, what it states that if x and n are co-prime. Okay. So, what is, this Euler theorem states that if x and n are co-prime. So, whenever the term come co-prime, that means its GCD value is 1. Okay. So, greatest common divisor value is 1 over here. So, its GCD is 1. So, Euler theorem states that if x and n are co-prime, that is GCD is 1, positive integer, co-prime positive integer, then we can represent this particular term. That is x raised to power phi n congruent 1 mod n. So I am not using double equal to over here. I am using this operation, this sign, which is known as a congruent operation. Okay. So what we mean by congruent, like the same part that belongs to both sides, we can represent that particular operation with this particular dash sign. Either you can write like this 3 sign, or you can write like this, that is x raised to power phi n mod n equal to 1 mod n. Both the terms are same, but if you don't use this mod n both sides, you just represent this sign, and that will represent that you are using mod on both the sides. Clear? So this is what Euler theorem is, that it states that if x and n are co-prime, that means GCD is equal to 1 positive integer, then x raised to power phi n congruent to 1 mod n. Clear? So when we will solve this particular thing, then you will able to understand that what is the purpose of this particular, and what is phi n over here. How we can represent a phi n? That is a quotient function. Okay, so that is it. Torsion, that is Euler-Thomson function is there. Okay, now let's suppose we have this particular number. Now let's suppose the value of x is 11 and the value of n is 10. Now both of these numbers are co-prime. Now both these numbers are co-prime. That means their GCD is 1. Clear? So when they are co-prime, how we can represent this particular term? If we equate this particular value in this, then we have 11. Okay, phi of n, that is 10, congruent to 1 mod 10. Okay, so we have 1 mod 10 over here. Clear? Now in previous theorem we have discussed that how we can solve this particular thing. So we need to solve this particular phi 10 over here. So what value you will be getting? Like if you remember the note, the point that I have noted in the last theorem, that is that we can have multiple of this particular number. So 2 5s are 10, 2, 5. Okay. So now if you see both these number are prime number. So if this particular number is prime number, we can directly subtract minus 1 from it. So we have 5 minus 1. Okay. So we have what answer we will be getting 1 into 4. So what answer we will be getting, that is 4. Clear? So I hope now you have understood that why we have studied that Euler torsion function over there, because we need to use that particular Euler torsion function in this particular equation, that is in this Euler theorem. So that's why we require Euler torsion function over here. Clear? So we have 5, 10, 5. We can solve this particular value by getting the multiples of this particular number, like 2, 5 is there. Both these number are prime number. So we can directly give this value. That is 2, 4. Now what will be answer 1 and 4? 4 is there. Now we will equate this particular value. So we have 11, 5, 10. The value of that 5, 10 is 4, equal to congruent to 1 mod 10. Clear? Now if you calculate this 11 raised to power 4, so what will be the answer? That is 14641. Okay. So this is the answer. Now what it will be, see that we will check this particular theorem. Like if we get now this both side, left hand side and right hand side both are equal. So this theorem states to be true. How? Why so? Now if you do that 1 mod 10, okay, so now what will be the remainder value? That is a 1. Okay, so what will be the remainder? That is 1 over here. Okay, so 1 mod 10 means that the remainder of this particular term will be 1. And if you divide 14641 by 10, okay, so what remainder we will be getting? That is 1 over here. Okay, so both the sides are equal, because here also we are getting this particular 1 divided by 10. So what remainder we are getting? That is 1. And if we divide this particular number by 1, again we are getting the remainder as a 1. So this theorem proves that if we are using this torsion function, okay, so at both the sides this particular values remains the same. Okay, so we can represent this as a particular thing, that it states that if x and n are co-prime, that means if we have GCD value of 1, okay, so in that particular case, that positive integer, the x will be congruent to 1 mod n. So this is what we need to prove in this particular Euler function. Clear? So 11 raised to power 4 is this particular value, and we have 1 mod 10. So here also 1 mod 10 matlab 1% 10, what will be answer? We will be getting remainder as 1. And again if we divide 14641 by 10, we will be getting 1 remainder. So that means both the sides are equal. Clear? Now there is another point that you need to note in this particular theorem, is that now let's suppose I am having this x, phi, n. So this is the point that you must note it regarding this particular Euler theorem. X raised to power phi n dot a congruent to 1 mod n. Okay, so what it says that we can, the value of a is what? We can take any value of this a. Okay, so we can take any multiple. So what it is like that any multiple that will we multiply with this particular phi n, with this particular torsion function, will also be congruent to this particular part. Clear? So anything we multiply with this particular torsion function, or we can say that any number that any multiple of this particular number will also be a congruent to 10. Clear? Now how this particular thing, now let's suppose we have 11 raised to power 4 and I have used the value of a as 2. So that will be also congruent to 1 mod 10. This is the same example that we have discussed previously. So we have 11 for we have this particular value. So if I multiply anything with this particular torsion function, again that particular side will be congruent to this 10. Okay, so any multiple of phi n will give the same result. So what answer we will be getting over here, like 4 to the 8. So we have 11, 8. So whatever the answer will be there, that will be also congruent. So let's suppose this is the answer 2, 1, 4, 3, 5, 8, 8, 8, 1. Okay. So we have 1 mod 10 over there. So when we will divide this particular thing by 10, so what will the remainder we will be getting, that is 1. And again on this side we have the remainder value as a 1. Clear? So I hope this particular thing has been clear to you. Clear? If you are satisfied with this particular thing, can please raise your hand. Yes, this is simple. These are just the, we are not directly using these theorems, but when we will implement RSA portion, in that case we will be requiring. That's why we need to tell you all these concepts so that we can use in this cryptography techniques. Clear? So now there is a simple example that we just solve it to tell you that how we can use this particular thing. Now we have x raised to power phi n. This is the formula, that is 1 mod n. Okay. Now let's suppose there is a term 499 mod 35. Okay. So here what will be the value of x will be 4, and what will be the value of n, that is 35, like this. Okay. So what Euler theorem say that we have 4 raised to power, according to this particular theorem, we have 4 raised to power, because the value of x is 4 and n is 35. We have 4 raised to power 35, and that is equivalent to 1 mod n. Okay. So n is 35 over here. Clear? Now how we will solve this? Like we first solve this 535. So what I told you earlier, that if there is a number, we can take multiple of that. So we have 5, 7 multiply 5, 5. 7 5s are 35. Both numbers are prime number. So we will directly subtract 1 from it. So what answer we will be getting? 6 into 4. That will be 24. Okay, so what my equation says that 4 raised to power 24 is congruent to 1 mod 35. Okay, now both these equations are congruent to each other. Now the next thing is that what value we need to find, that is 4 raised to power 99. This is not my equation. My equation is this. How we can solve this particular thing? Now I know that 4 raised to power 24 is congruent to this particular term. Okay? So if you remember, we have used the concept of multiples dot a. So what I will do it over here, that I will use 4 raised to power 24, 4 into 4 raised to power 3. Okay? So we can divide this particular 99 in such a way. Okay? 4 4 is 16, 4 2 is 8, 96. 96 plus 3, 99. Clear? This is how we can divide this particular thing. Okay. So we have just taken the multiple of this 24 over here. Clear? Now what I will do over here, that we will solve this particular thing individually. We have mod 35. So how we can solve 4, 24, 4 mod 35. Dot 4 raised to power 3 mod 35. Okay, so how we can represent this particular thing? Okay, so we have represented each and everything in the form of this 1 mod 35. Okay, so this is congruent, that means this will be also congruent. So what answer we will be getting? 1 over here. This will be my answer. 1 mod 35. So what answer we will be getting? That is 1 over here. Okay. And we will solve this particular thing. 1.43 mod 35. From where I am getting this 1? From this particular equation. Here. And 4 is a multiple of this 24. So that means this will be also give you answer, that is 1 over here. Okay. So finally, we will solve this particular thing. So what answer we will be getting? 4q mod 35, that is 64 mod 35. So what will be the answer? That is 29. Okay. So what answer for this particular term we are getting over here? So when we will calculate 64 mod 35, what remainder we will be getting? That is 29 over here. Is it clear? This is very easy. I just repeat it once. We have a equation like this. You can get in the exams also, you can get question like this: 4 raised to power 99 mod 35. Calculate the value for this particular thing. We know that according to this theorem that value of x will be 4 and n will be 35. Okay? So we have equated that particular value 4, 5, 35 congruent 1 mod 35. Okay? So what we have done, that we have calculated 530. We will first calculate the value of 535. Okay? So in that particular case, we can get the multiple of that 35. 7 5s are 35. Both these numbers are prime numbers. Subtract 1 from it. 6, 4, 24. So what answer for this 535 we are getting? That is 24. Now we have proved that anything 4 raised to power 24 will be congruent to 1 mod 35. That means its remainder will be 1. Now I will equate this particular value in this equation. How? As you know that my value is not 24, my value is 99. I will change this value to 99. How come? 4 raised to power 24 multiply by 4. Again I have dot operator 4 raised to power cube and total will be 99. Clear? So I know that the multiple is also same as that of the number itself. So what answer I will be getting? That is 1 over here. And dot 4 cube mod 35. So finally what will be the answer? 64 mod 35, and what will be the remainder? That is 29. Okay? So 29 will be the final answer in my case. Clear? I know this is somehow a little bit, but if you are writing side by side with me, that is quite easy concept. If you are hearing me very carefully, then you will able to understand this concept is very easy. Okay, so somehow a little bit thing has been clear to your mind. If you are satisfied with this particular theorem, can you raise your hands? I know there could be some lot of problems could be there in the calculation portion, but apart from that calculation, just go through that what basic concept we need to follow. Okay, so that must be clear, that you must understand all those concepts. You can solve that particular thing by your own afterwards. Next we have, last thing is that Fermat theorem is there. Okay, so in the last portion we have a simple Fermat theorem. These are little bit number theory concepts that we are using in this particular topic, but not to worry, all these concepts are very easy. I will obviously give you notes afterwards. You can go through all these things. Okay, so we have a special case. There is a Fermat theorem. Now this is a special case of Euler theorem. Fermat theorem is a special case of Euler theorems. Okay? So if n is prime, what it says that if n is prime and x is a positive integer, x is a positive integer. Okay? And not divisible by n, and not divisible by n, then what will happen? we have x raised to power n minus 1 that is congruent to 1 mod n. Now this is the Fermat theorem we use in that particular case where my n is prime. Okay, so this is a special case of your Euler theorem. Okay, what is the special case where my n is prime and x is a positive integer which is not divisible by n. Okay, so in that case we can represent that x raised to power n minus 1 is congruent to 1 mod n. Clear? So how we can represent this particular thing? So in my case here n is prime, x is a positive integer which is not divisible by n. This is my requirement for this particular theorem. Okay. Now this is the case where we can use this particular thing. So when we have n over here as a prime number, now for Euler theorem what we use? X raised to power phi n congruent to 1 mod n. This is the way how we write Euler theorem. But if my n is prime over here, then my equation being converted to this particular form. Okay, then it becomes Fermat theorem, that is x raised to power n minus 1 congruent to 1 mod n. Okay, like this, x raised to power n minus 1 mod n. This is the, we can say that special case of a Euler theorem. Okay, or we can represent this particular thing as x raised to power n congruent to x mod n, or sometimes it is written like this, a raised to power p, a mod p. So you can follow any of the method, either like this, this or this. Okay. So this is how we can use this particular Fermat theorem over here. Okay. Now let's suppose we have the value of that x raised to power. We have a value for x equal to 3 and we have value n equal to 5. So what will be there if we equate this particular value, that is 3 raised to power 5 minus 1 congruent to 1 mod 5. Okay. So what answer we will be getting? 3 raised to power 5 minus 1, 4. That is 81 congruent to 1 mod 5. So when you will divide this 81 by 5, what remainder you will be getting? That is 1. Okay. So this theorem has been proved. So both the side, whatever the answer you are getting, that is 1 over here also, 1 over here. 1 mod 5 is 1. Okay. 81 divided by 5 is also 1. So remainder is also 1 over here. Clear? So this is how we can use this particular thing. Clear? So either you can represent this particular case like this, or you can represent that case like this also. Okay? So that is x raised to power, if I equate like this, x is 3, n is 5, that is 3 mod 5. Okay? You can also equate like this also. So what will be the answer? 3 raised to power 5 is 243. That is 243. Okay, that will be congruent to 3 mod 5. Okay, so 3 mod 5. What remainder you will be getting? That is 3 over here. Okay, and if you divide that 243 by 3, again that will be 3. Oh, sorry, if you divide 243 by 5, again your answer will be 3 over here. Okay, so this is the Fermat theorem. I hope this is clear to you. I hope guys this is clear to you, Fermat theorem. Please raise your hands if you feel any problem in any topic, because as all these topics are somehow numerical based, you just try it afterwards and you can ask me anytime for any type of your problem. Okay, so I think this is these are all the numerical portion that we need to do in this particular part. Okay, so I have a two polls related to this particular topics. So I will just discuss, we just solve that particular polls, and afterwards I will start with another part. Okay, so the very first poll is based on that Euler theorem. So the first sign may not be visible to you. Just consider that sign as a phi. Okay, so I'm just going to launch that particular poll. Okay, students, hurry up. I will give you another 1 minute for that. Okay, I'm going to end this particular poll. Okay, so you can see this. I'm sharing results with you. So first question was that we need to find the no that notation Euclid quotient function for the value 8. So if I 8, how much what will be the number of that co-prime we will be having, that is 4. Okay, how come? Like we will consider all those value from 1 to 8. So with 1 we have a co-prime value, that is that value of GCD should be 1. So with 1 it is true. So I just name all those co-prime, okay, whose value of GCD is 1. So in case of 8, we have one number that GCD value is 1, with 3 number with GCD value as 1, with 5 number that is GCD value 1, and with 7 number with GCD value 1. Okay, so total number of elements should be 4. So right answer will be here, that is 4. Okay, so what is that co-prime? Co-prime is that whose GCD value is 1. Clear? So in case of 8, we have total 4 elements are there whose GCD value is 1. So the numbers are 1, 3, 5 and 7. Clear? So Euler theorem is also known as, how we can say that Euler theorem, how we can define this particular theorem as a, so this theorem is also known as a, that is Euler-Fermat theorem. Okay, so it is also being represented as a Euler it is represented as a Fermat-Euler theorem. So second option is the right answer. It is not like Euler-Fermat, it is Fermat-Euler theorem. So we can represent this Euler theorem as a Fermat-Euler theorem. Okay, or Euler-Tauschent theorem is also known as. It is also known as Euler-Tauschent theorem. Okay. So this was regarding that questions related to that Euler theorems. Now the next I am going to share the another poll that is related to, that is based on that Fermat theorem. Okay, hurry up students. I'm going to end this poll within 30-40 seconds. Okay, I'm going to end this poll. Now, these are the results I am sharing with you. So, Fermat theorem is a specialized case of this Euler theorem. So, this is the right answer. Okay. So, this is 243 modulus 5. So, what remainder we will be getting? That is 3. Okay. So, these are just a simple question that were related to your this theorem part. Okay. So, now next portion I will start with that is this particular thing, that we will start with the asymmetric, or the we can say the types of cryptography techniques. So what are the different types of the cryptography techniques? The very first is the symmetric cryptography. So many times in the first unit you have seen that whatever the algorithms that we have done, so all these algorithms were based on some symmetric keys. We have used the concept of that symmetric keys over here. Okay, so what symmetric key says that we have a same set of keys at both ends, either at the encryption portion also and either at the decryption portion also. So what basically occurs in this type of a cryptography, like we have a plain text, we encrypt that particular plain text with a key. Okay, so we will get the ciphertext over here, and when at the receiver end, this, let's suppose this is your A and this is your B, and at the receiver end where another person is there, it must have same set of key, that is key 1, to decrypt that particular thing. Okay, so this is the concept of a symmetric cryptography, that this is the simplest kind of encryption technique that involves only one key to encrypt and decrypt. Okay, so this is how we can use this cryptography method. Okay, so symmetric cryptography is also known as secret key cryptography. Just remember this name. This is known as secret key cryptography, and it is also known as a private key cryptography. Private key cryptography. Clear? So many time exams, sometimes they use the word secret key or private key, so student gets confused. So just remember why it is known as a secret key, because we use only a single key. So single key, that particular key is important to us. That is a secret key, because we have to lock with that particular key also, and we can unlock with that particular key also. So that key is a secret key, or we can say that private key. So that's why this type of a cryptography is also known as a that is private key and the secret key cryptography. Clear? Next type is that asymmetric cryptography. Now in this particular symmetric cryptography, we have done so many algorithms over here, like we have done DES. So DES is also one of the example of this type of a algorithm. Okay, so we have two DS, we have three DS. So all these algorithms are the types of this symmetric cryptography. Clear? So we have already done, you have already noticed also that in that particular algorithms we were using same set of keys. Okay, so both and for the encryption also and for the decryption also. Now this symmetric key cryptography, it is quite fast, but it is quite fast and it is less complex. Okay, so it is quite fast and it is less complex as compared to that asymmetric, that we will discuss later on, that how it is faster and less complex, and it is always used for to transfer bulk data. Okay, so how we can use this particular thing of this symmetric, in order where we have a large data to send between that is the sender and the receiver. So in that particular case, we prefer to use symmetric key cryptography. Okay, but there is only one difficulty over here, is that there is a difficult to share keys, difficult to share key, because we have a single key only here, so we need to protect that particular key. Okay, so we also need to protect from that intruders also, that particular key should not be shared with anyone, because either it can use that key for encryption or it can use that key for decryption portion. Okay, now the next thing is that there is a another type that is known as a asymmetric key cryptography. Now what is this asymmetric key cryptography? This is also known as public key cryptography. So how we represent this asymmetric, that is public key cryptography. In this particular technique, we use two keys, or we use a pair of keys in this particular case. So two keys are used in this case of a asymmetric cryptography. One key is for, that is for encryption, and another key is for decryption. Okay, so we have two types of keys over here. One is the public key and another one is the private key. Okay, so we know that we have two keys in the case of asymmetric, but in which that particular key we have one key as a public key and another key as a private key over here. Okay, so one is your public key and another one is your private key. Is it clear? Next is that public key is what? That is known to everyone. Okay, that is known to everyone. And what is private key? That is known only to that particular person. Okay, so this is how we can use both these keys. That one key, we have to make one key as a public key so that anyone can use that particular keys. Okay, and another one key is the private key for us. Okay, now the next thing is that in case of a asymmetric cryptography, so a message that is encrypted using a public key can be decrypted only using the private key. Now let's suppose this is the sender A and this is the receiver B. So what will happen, that this sender A will encrypt that particular plain text with the help of a public key. Okay, with the help of his public key, it will encrypt that particular message and it will convert that particular message to the ciphertext. Okay, so it will convert that particular message to the ciphertext. Now at the receiver end, what will happen, that receiver B will decrypt that particular message with the help of a key 2. Okay, so with the help of a key 2, it will decrypt that particular message. And what type of a key it will use? It will use a private key of A. So always remember one thing, that at this particular situation, if we are using asymmetric cryptography, these keys should not be same. If you are using public key to encrypt the message, then you have to use the private key of A only to decrypt that particular message. Okay, if you are encrypting that particular message with the help of a private key of A, it can decrypt that particular message with the help of a public key of A. Okay, so both these keys should not be same. If it is same, that this particular type is not this asymmetric type, then it will pose to you a symmetric cryptography. I hope this is clear to you. So this is a very important topic, and sometimes students get confused in this case also, that what is symmetric and what is asymmetric. Okay, so we have two set of keys. So always there is requirement, if we are encrypting a particular message using the public key of that particular sender, then you can decrypt with using the private key. And if you are using private key over here, then you have to use the public key over here. Is it clear? Now again, this key is two different. Now this type of a method is somehow slower as compared to that particular symmetric cryptography. Clear? So with the help of a algorithm, we will see that how this particular thing is being slower. So we have this method is somehow little bit slower as compared to that symmetric cryptography. Next is that this is quite complex because we are using different set of keys over here So this type of a process is somehow a little bit complex as that compared to the symmetric key of, and there is also no problem of sharing keys because we have different keys at different for different purpose. So there is no chance of sharing all those data. Okay, so we use this type of a algorithm if we want to share secret, there is a secret exchange of keys, or we can say that there is secret exchange of data between between two parties, then only we prefer this type of a method. Clear? So example of this particular is that RSA, you have this is one of the algorithm that we will discuss in the next lecture. RSA, DSA, Delphi-Hellman. So all this algorithm use this type of a technique. Clear? So this is somehow important question. Many time in exams, it asks you about the difference between these two cryptographic techniques. Now there is another portion, like we have a hash function. There is another concept over here, like we use hash function. Clear? Hash function, or we say that this is a message digest. Message digest. This are somehow terms that we use in this particular case. Okay? So in hash function or message digest, we don't use any type of a keys. Okay? We don't prefer to use any type of a keys in this particular algorithm. Okay? And what it says that, what it do, that it will take input as a variable size of message, variable size message, and it converts to and gives you a fixed sized output. Fixed size output is there. Okay, so what is the function of this message digest or hash function is that it will take variable length size message as a input, and it will give you the fixed size output. Okay, so what will be the output? That will be in the form of a hash code or a hash value. So whenever you recognize this term, that is hash code or hash value, that means you are digesting that particular message. Okay, so you are following the technique of hash function over there. Okay, so hash code makes it impossible for the contents of plain text to be recovered. So hash codes are some of the secrets value that makes it impossible for the content of plain text, that how we can recover that particular content of a plain text. Clear? So sometime in 1-2 marks question, this thing should be asked. So the real-time example of this particular case is that, like, operating system uses hash function to encrypt the password. So whatever the password that we give to a particular system, all those passwords are being encrypted using this hash method. This is hash function. Clear? So what is there? That we have a message of a variable length. Now let's suppose this is your message of variable length. Okay, we have a hash function over here, and we will have a hash value. Okay, so this is with the help of this hash function we can get the hash value over here, that is of fixed size. Okay, so you can see over here, if this part is not visible, this hash function will produce you the hash value. Clear? So these types are clear to you? If this particular thing has been clear, shall I move to the next topic? That is the digital signature. Kindly raise your hands if this particular types of cryptography techniques are clear to you. Okay, now the next topic is related to that is digital signatures. So many times you have also used this particular term, that is the digital signature. So there is another concept of digital signature. Okay, so what is this digital signature? Like we have a private key over here. Okay, so this is the private key. Next, we have that digital signature generating algorithm. Generating algorithm. Now here we are getting that message also. What this digital signature generating algorithm will do, it will convert that message with a signature. So we have a message over here also plus the signature part. Okay, so what will be there, that we have a encryption algorithm over here. That will generate that particular message with this sign. So we have a sign from that digital signature generating algorithm, and also we have an encryption algorithm that will convert that particular message. Clear? Now the next thing is that digital signature on the receiver end. What will be there? Like we have a digital signature. Verification algorithm is there. Verification algorithm is there. So we will use the public key. Like we have used the private key A over here. So we will use the public key of A to decrypt that particular message. Okay. And finally, we will get the message over here after the validity check. After the checking that all those signature has been, that when we will verify that the signature at both the ends are same, and that case we will get the output over here. Okay, so this is how we can use this particular digital signature concept. Now I can explain you with this particular thing. Let's suppose this is the message. Okay, now we can use some hash functions over here. We will get the hash value. So any type of a data is there. So this is how we can represent this particular message, using the hash values, how we can describe this particular thing. Now you can see there are 2-3 terms that we are using. One is the capital H, another is small h, and there is some particular tag value, any type of a tag value I have given. Now what is this capital H? That is a hash function. Okay, and what is this small h? That is hash code. And 11 is what? That any type of a data that we have appended. Okay, so appended is what? Like we have added something, anything, just to make that particular message a secure message. Okay, so what we have done, now let's suppose there is this type of a person, like we have a sender over here, A is there, and at the another end we have B over here. Okay, so what we will do, we will send this particular message. Okay, that message will be sent. Next is the, we will convert that particular message by using some particular hash function. So we have used some particular hash function over here, H, capital H. We will get some hash code over here that will be appended using some particular message. Any type of a message you can give, just to describe that particular thing, just to, you can say that a particular mark to my message. So any type of a marking I can give to this particular message. Okay, after that I have encrypted that particular message using the private key of A. Clear? Now whatever the answer I will be getting, what will be the ciphertext, that will be that will be containing a message also plus a hash value also. Clear? Now when this message move to the another end, receiver end, there is a decrypted key. That key will be decrypted. We use the public key of that sender A. Okay, like we have used the private key of A to encrypt that message, and we will use the public key of A to decrypt that particular message. So in that case, we will get the output in the form of like this, message or hash. Okay, so message or hash. Now what will happen over here, that both this hash value will be verified. So we will verify all this value of the hash codes value. We will verify all this hash values just to check that whatever being transmitted on both the ends are same or not. Clear? So this is how we can digital signature can be implementing. Either we can use some digital signature generating algorithm like in this particular case, or we can have some particular hash code or hash functions are there that append your particular message, and at the receiver end we will check that all both the ends the same message has been checked or not. Clear? So where we use this digital signature, we use this for the online transaction. Okay. Now what type of a online transaction? Now let's suppose there is a sender and a receiver. Okay. Now both, there are two parties, X and Y. Okay. So X is giving some amount to Y, but Y is saying that I haven't ordered for any such type of a order. Okay. So Y is saying that it has an order for any amount of a money. ठीक है, तो उसमें क्या होगा, देर इज नो चांस दैट देर इज नो मतलब वे बाय हाउ वी कैन सॉल्व देयर प्रॉब्लम्स. One is denying something and another wants to give it that particular person. So we require the concept of digital signatures that will authenticate the request. ठीक है, so this particular digital signature will be used for authentication. Okay, we use this digital signature concept for the authentication, so that in both the parties no one can deny the sharing of that particular data. Okay, so we require this authentication, message authentication, or the non-repudiation. We have already discussed this term, non-repudiation is there. Non-repudiation means that in both the parties no one will deny that particular thing. Okay, so authentication is what that only registered person can ask for some detail. Okay, and another party who is answering that particular query should be also registered one. So both the parties should be registered. So in authentication what we use, registered party will be using this term, and non-repudiation or non-denying of data. Okay, no one can deny that this particular thing has not been demanded by the another person. Okay, the third one is the message integrity. Message integrity. So when we require these three features, in that case we use the concept of digital integrity. Means there is no modification in that particular message. Okay, so this is how we can use this digital thing. Always remember that we never use the digital signature for the confidentiality part. Okay, so it is not used to ensure the confidentiality of message. Just remember one thing. Okay, so for confidentiality of this particular thing, we don't use the concept of digital signature. Fine. So next is that how signature must be used some information that is unique to the sender to prevent the both forgery and the denial. So signature is what? Like we sign a particular document just to ensure that this particular person has been the registered person, or this is the right person to whom we want to claim that particular. Okay. So message integrity is what? That if message changes, then at receiver side we will not get the exact message. So we need to maintain message integrity just to ensure that nothing has been modified in that particular message. Okay, so how we can perform that particular thing, message integrity, using this hash functions. ठीक है. So using this hash function we can use this the concept of message integrity. Okay, so when we sign a document digitally, we send the signature as a separate document. So sender sends two documents. One is your message, another one is your signature. So these are the two documents that we send using the digital signature. Okay, signature must use some information unique to the sender to prevent forgery and denial. And it must be easy to produce a digital signature so that we can verify and recognize in a ease manner. ऐसा नहीं कि that we are producing some complex structure over here, so we can just prefer to use some simple way in which we can sign that particular. Okay, so what we require in this particular case, we require a key generation algorithm. Okay, so in this particular digital signature we require key generation algo. Then there is a signing algo in which we use input as the message plus private key and output will be the digital signature. ठीक है. Key generation algo will be there. If this thing is not visible, just listen to me carefully. Key generation algorithm that will produce the keys. Okay, that will be required to produce the private key. That is the signing algorithm in which we require input as a message and the private key and output as a digital signature. Last one is the verifying algo. Verifying algo is there. So that will use the public key and the signature. So what verifying algorithm will use? I'm just writing over here. Third thing is the verifying algorithm that will use the public key and the signature. Okay, so this is how we can use this concept of digital signatures. Okay, so message authentication is that we can get same message digest or hash value only if private key of both the parties are same. Okay, so how this is how we can make ensure that both the parties are authentic. Message integrity is that we will use the hash value that will help us to preserve the integrity of the message. And the non-repetition is, that is non-repetition means denial of data that is achieved using the trusted third party, that is in the form of a digital signature. So this was all about this particular digital signature. So I hope that today's class is quite informative to you and you have understood all those concepts. So that Euler theorem, Euler-Toshan function and that Fermat theorem, all these three things we will be using in the next part, that is the RSA portion. Okay, so I just request you that before your next lecture you just go through all these method notations and all those number theory techniques that I have told you, that is how to calculate GCD, highest common factor, prime number. So you can go through all those things. Is it clear? So there are two polls that we need to yeah, discuss regarding this particular topic. I'm just going to launch that both the polls. So first of all, you just implement this poll 3. going to end this poll. So I'm going to share results with you. So most of the students have given the right answer for the first question, that is in public key crypto system, so, which is kept as public, that is the encryption keys. Okay. Next is that public key encryption and decryption is not preferred. Why so? Because of all these things. So fourth option is the right one. Obviously, it is a slow, it is a hardware software intensive, and it requires high computational load. So these were the results regarding your this particular poll. Now I will share with you the last poll, that is based on digital certificates. Okay, students, hurry up. I am going to end this poll within a minute. Okay, I will share results with you. So the very first thing was that digital signature cannot provide, that is the confidential. This is the right answer, and most of the students have given the right answer. I hope, I think I have discussed this particular thing on board also, that how that it doesn't describe the confidentiality of that particular data. Okay. Next is that a digital signature needs a asymmetric key system. This is the right answer. Okay, so when we are using a digital signature, that means we require the asymmetric, we require different key set. Next is that this hash function is also known as a message digest. So this was all about the different polls that we have done according to the according to today's session. So I hope I am very much clear in about conveying you all those information regarding to that particular different uh, uh, topics that we have done in today's class. So I know that this some of the topics like that Euler theorem and torsion function, you might be having some confusion regarding that, but just be patient. I just share with you the notes, okay, and you just go through all those notes, okay. Then you will may get to able to understand more easily that how we can use all those things, okay. So we will be using that Euler theorem and Fermat theorem in the further algorithms that we'll be discussing in the next class. So kindly be ensured before the next class that everything should be very much clear in your mind. And I hope that if you feel like any thing to discuss with me, you can raise your hands, or if you have any type of a problem. Yes, Yuvraj. Yes, Yuvraj. Any problem? You just unmute your mic. Yes, Vasu. Any problem?
Yes, ma'am, I'm having a very small problem.
Yes.
मैम वो जो डैशबोर्ड पे अपडेट करते हो मैम टॉपिक्स, तो मैम वो कई टॉपिक्स और कई उसके नोट्स वगैरह मैच नहीं करते, स्लाइड्स वगैरह, तो मैम हमारे को बहुत कंफ्यूजन होती है मैम उसके
नहीं
रिगार्डिंग।
नहीं, ये जो डैशबोर्ड का है ना, वो ऐसा है कि वी आर जस्ट गिविंग दैट पर्टिकुलर नोट्स कि जो आपका ओवरऑल है सारा, ठीक है।
उसमें
जो
मैम एक
जो
सिमेट्रिक रहती है ना, सिमेट्री रहती है कि इस
हाँ,
डेट को हमने ये
सिमेट्री मैंने
टॉपिक्स कवर
सिमरन
किए
को,
हैं और ये वो हमारी पीपीटी है।
हाँ
तो
मैं
ऐसे मैम सब कुछ पता चलता रहता है, ऐसे एक तो ऑनलाइन क्लासेस लग रही हैं, ये सब हो
नहीं
रहा
नहीं
है, तो
नहीं,
मैम एक
आपको
सिमेट्रिक।
सिमरन ने नोट्स नहीं दिए क्या अभी तक?
मैम वो तो है, बट मैम वो
हाँ,
बहुत हौच पौच हो जाता है ना, आप वो भी तो
नहीं नहीं,
देखो ना, एक
आपको
प्रॉपर
हौच पौच करने की
डैशबोर्ड
ज़रूरत
तो
नहीं
पता
है।
ही
सुनो,
नहीं।
लिसन टू मी। आप ऐसा करो, जो सिमरन को मैंने नोट्स दिए हैं, मैंने हैंड
हाँ
रिटन
जी,
दिए हैं नोट्स, ठीक
हाँ
है।
जी, हाँ जी मैम।
तो समहाउ क्या होता है कि कई बार हैंड रिटन में एवरीथिंग वी डोंट एबल टू एक्सप्लेन ऑल दोज थिंग्स, ठीक है।
ओके ओके
तो दैट्स वाई वी यूज अनदर PDF और PPTs फॉर योर रेफरेंस, things are
ओके ओके
same. So what you can do, you I just say you that you just go through that handwritten notes, and
ओके
just as a reference you can use that PDF and PPTs, clear?
ओके।
अगर आपको कोई चीज लगती है ऐसे कि ये उसमें नहीं थी, then only you study
यस
that particular thing, ठीक है।
ओके
डोंट रिवाइज और डोंट लर्न ऑल दोज थिंग्स इन ए मल्टीपल वे। अगर मैंने हैंड रिटन नोट्स दिए, दैट आर सफिशिएंट। एल्गोरिदम्स के लिए वो बेस्ट है, तभी मैंने वो बाद में दे दिए थे, क्योंकि जो PDF
ओके।
और PPTs है ना, उसमें थोड़ा कंटेंट ज़्यादा था, एंड इट वाज क्वाइट लाइक कि थोड़ा और कॉम्प्लेक्स वे में था, तो आई थॉट कि बच्चों को नहीं पता चल पाएगा। सो दैट्स वाई आई हैव गिवन यू दैट हैंड रिटन नोट्स।
ओके मैम।
क्लियर? सो डोंट गेट पैनिक और डोंट गेट कि हाँ गेट कंफ्यूज कि हम कौन से करें. आप प्रेफर करो हैंड रिटन. बाकी पीडीएफ से आप एक दो बार गो थ्रू कर लो. जो चीज़ एक्स्ट्रा होगी आई विल इमीडिएटली टेल यू कि दैट दीज पर्टिकुलर नोट्स आर इम्पोर्टेंट, देन ओनली यू कैन स्टडी दैट पर्टिकुलर नोट्स.
Okay,
Otherwise
ma'am.
you can use them as a reference material.
Okay, ma'am. I will try to
Okay,
do
and
that.
if you are having that book, then there is no need of any type of a panic should be there, because you can follow your book. That is also simple.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you. So I hope students ki, like you all are having that notes with you. That is quite important, because as you know that we cannot um, get contact with each other in such a matlab, physically we don't you are not in college. So that's why if you feel like any problem, so you can get to it. But I am trying my best that every week I am giving you notes side by side only, so that you can revise all those things. Okay, so I think I'm done with today's session. So thank you very much for your patience listening. And again, I'm just repeating this particular thing. Just revise all those topics that we discussed in the class. I'm trying to convey all those things in a very easy manner, because I know this is the online class. So everything, most of the things, you won't be able to get all those things in a very simple way. So just try to go through all those notes and just listen to me very carefully in the class. That will help you out. Thank you, students. And obviously, we will meet in the next lecture. Thank you.